lot of analysis goes in behind the scenes that maybe people don't see, but when that comes into have an effect on how we train, then I think that's pretty rewarding. Yeah. For me, the two avenues that I'd look at is trying to minimise injury risk and then trying to maximise their physical performance. And then those two things ultimately lead to them getting onto the field on the weekend. It's important to know the volume of work that a player has to do in a game, and it's important to know the intensity of that work. So if we know that, say for example, a fullback has to be able to handle X amount of distance and he has to do that at a certain intensity or a certain speed, then that's how we develop our training and conditioning based around those numbers. That little kind of thing you'd see on the back of their shoulder blades is called a GPS unit, and that tracks what distances they're covering, how fast they're covering those distances at, and we use that basically to track their performance, their workload throughout a game, throughout a week, throughout the season. So the first thing I suppose to do is just to collect a lot of information about the game, try to get a good understanding of it, and then from there, that's how we condition players, that's how we manage people, and that's how we try to get guys performing better on the weekend. Trying to look at just predominantly three things: is the volume of the session, the intensity of the session, and then in certain cases, certain players, we look at the speed that they've achieved. So kind of we want guys to achieve certain speeds in certain days of training, and that's from a performance and an injury risk point of view. So one of the things we look at is volume. We look to try control volume, so if guys are doing too much, we might try to rotate them in with someone who isn't doing enough, just to make sure that they have a balanced week and training session as well, and they're getting enough of a training exposure to ensure that they're ready to play in the weekend or the following week. The more we understand injury, the more we can, I suppose, try to reduce the risk of it. We have a pretty progressive kind of return to play protocol that we have in place for certain injuries, and as we get closer to their return, it's combined with the physios and the S&C and the rehab and even the coaches. We've set out certain parameters for certain injuries, so when someone has a hamstring injury, for example, that we know he has to hit a certain amount of markers in order for him to be ready to train, and then in order for him to be ready to play. So we know if he's hitting certain markers on certain days that we can say to the coaches, okay, he's done this, tomorrow he'll do this, and then he can stop back into training in 3 days' time, and then once he takes certain markers of intensity, then we know that we're hoping that he's ready for training games as well. Once we know how important a metric is, then we'll highlight it and focus on it. For us, we're trying to state to coach and players, what you've done and then how hard you've had to work to get that. So there's certain metrics again that we focus on that will give us some indication of their work rate within certain phases of play or certain periods of training, and then we would rank those positionally based on their output as well. When something materialises into having an effect in how we train and how we play, then I think that's pretty rewarding. So we have tons of data, and I think we analyse it in a certain way, but I think if we can start to combine all of that and have a better analysis of those numbers, then I think we'll hopefully get a step ahead of everyone else.